everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Who's Ready for Monster Jam podcast. I am your host, Who's Ready for Monster Jam. You got my name there. You can finally see my name for once. And I'm joined today by Mr. Phil Vicinanza himself. Little background on Phil. Phil, former Feld employee, former competition manager at Monster Jam, and former arena statistician. He's been everywhere. A lot of you viewing this probably know him, but if you don't, Phil, tell them a little bit about yourself. Why is Phil Vicinanza an important person to know?
Man, well, thank you for having me, but you're bumming me out. You keep saying former. I mean,
well, I'm not going to throw people off.
I know. Hey, it's a lot of people have former on their titles. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we can change that back. But yeah, I've been very honored for the last 4 or 5 years. I've worked for Feld Entertainment and Monster Jam in various capacities as a competition manager and also as a statistics manager. Worn a lot of different hats. I've done just about everything in the monster truck industry except for drive a truck at this point. Been in the business for a while. Long-time fan, of course. You know, you never stop being a fan. Got into this, buying toys, and then the rest is history.
Do you hear me? Do you see me?
I hear you, but yeah, now I see you.
Okay, because my thing just blacked out for a second. It seems like every time I start a podcast, the internet just decides to have a heart attack. So Phil has been a longtime Monster Jam fan, as have I. And before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the show, which is me testing your Monster Jam knowledge, give a little bit of your Monster Jam background. Everybody loves to know the backstory. What made you a Monster Jam fan? It can be 5 minutes long of an explanation or 10 seconds. Just whatever you think is important for people to know as to what your Monster Jam roots are.
Yeah, so I first, I'm a longtime motorsports fan. You know, my dad always would get up early Sunday morning, watch the Formula One races, and then NASCAR would always be on. So, of course, I took a liking to racing, and any racing fan always was stalking the Speed channel back in the day, Speed Vision, checking out all the different racing going on there. And, of course, I found Monster Jam airing on Speed. So what is this? Crazy monster trucks doing absurd things. And I love toys. I love collecting things. So, of course, soon after I watched Monster Jam on Speed, I went over to Target and I found my first Monster Jam toy. And obviously it's Gravedigger. And off to the races there. That's how I got my foot in the door. I was a toy collector, and I found the old Monster Truck Collectors forum online. And that's really where I got to meet a lot of people, and really at a young age got to be involved with the community. At 12 years old, I became a staff member on the website, and I'm working alongside of a whole bunch of gentlemen that some of them don't even live in the country. They live in Germany and Holland. So it was very much a culture shock, but they picked me at 12 years old because they thought I was very well spoken and knew how to handle myself on the internet. So that's why when I talk to like today's kids of Instagram, how to behave, I am the example, because at 12 years old, I had better English than 40-something-year-olds. So, but through that, I got to meet a lot of people and a lot of great experiences. And actually, at 13 years old, just a year after I became a staff member, there was a Monster Jam tech official that first year on the job, he had a blog, and he was writing about his experiences working on the job with Monster Jam. And of course, I left a comment. I said, "Dude, this is so cool! Like, I'd love to do something like this. How do I get involved?" And he's like, "Why don't you come out and help out?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm only 13 years old." So he's like, "Okay, well, when you're age 18, you send me a message. I'll make sure you get put to work." So that 5-year span, I went to a lot of my local events. I was doing media coverage, just kind of helping out, just being around. I'm never mechanically inclined with the trucks, so I'm always around the trucks, and I just know how to fit in. It's like every event, it's like, oh, Phil's here, no big deal. So at age 18, I got to Club Monster Jam, or track crew, volunteer my help. It was the last event at Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona. Learned a lot there. The next year I did the return to Glendale and also down to Tucson. And then I did apply to be a tech official. That didn't happen. Then down the road there, I got the position as competition manager and started traveling all over the country, 24 states I visited, U.S., Canada, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico. all sorts of shapes and sizes. A lot of the sport's most recent big moments I've been a part of. I was in the war room, I say, for World Finals 20. Get to be part of such a monumental event there. Super cool. Just a lot of memories, man, and a lot of fun. Hopefully we all get back at it soon. I know they got their tours going right now, a couple like one tour and some miscellaneous events, but I know everybody at Monster Jam is working hard to get more people back out there, and hopefully my phone gets to ring sooner rather than later, and I can get back out there and have some fun.
Well, I think we're all rooting for you on that front, Phil. But as a whole, I mean, that's for those that are watching that want to get interested in Monster Jam. Phil is you're the example. I mean, you started young, you got involved, you were mature enough that you caught the eye of people that you needed to catch the eye of, and it worked. And you got to, I mean, obviously every Monster Jam fan's dream job as a kid is to drive, but in the end, you got your dream job, and that came through persistence and passion. And that's something that I think a lot of the viewers here that have aspirations to work in Monster Jam someday should follow. If you've got that dream, go for it. Eventually, if you're passionate enough, you'll get there or get some sort of in some sort of capacity. Now, Phil, obviously everybody know you about your toy collection and your collection in general. But for those that don't know, Phil obviously is a big collector of toys. He and things in general. You're a big Monster Jam collector. Tell us a little bit more about that. Things you collect, some of your prized possessions that you've picked up over the years.
My answer to that is that I always collect memories. That's the biggest thing. That's so cliche, but it's so cool. Obviously, I've been involved with toys, and I have like all the World Finals trucks and special editions like that, and now like our Spin Master employee trucks and things like that. But a lot of weird miscellaneous things. That's why I'm a big hero card collector. Little handouts they give out at the displays or teams sell at their merchandise tents, like the smaller fairground events. I took a liking to that because I used to obviously collect all the Hot Wheels trucks. Ran out of room a long time ago. I knew, hey, where am I going to put all these toys? So that's why I really started to focus a lot on the hero cards. Actually, over my shoulder, there's a big stack of cards. You can kind of see it by my 30-year-old TV that that's all my trade pile. I have over 800 different hero cards in the collection, still growing there. So I like doing that. I like being a little different, thinking outside the box. But of course, I have the obligatory fiberglass. I have no room for like the Gravedigger door or the Gravedigger roof, but I like the little piece of fiberglass, like you could like the little things that they throw away. You put in, like your pocket. So I have a whole bunch of those in little Ziploc bags. I would just shove in my pocket and keep going. Knowing that's garbage, or they would just say, this is literally garbage. Why do you want it? It's like, I don't have no room for a roof or, a whole zombie arm or something. Just give me like a finger. I don't know. So yeah, I have that all stashed away. I mean, it's not like it's out. I have some things on display, but nothing too ridiculous. Nothing that's obnoxious that would scare people away.
Now, one of these days, I'll have to have you back on, and we'll have to do a Phil merchandise show. Like the one day when I FaceTime Phil, and he showed me everything, and it was really cool. One of these days when we have a free day of nothing going on, no WrestleMania or anything, you're going to come on, and we'll have you show some of your incredible stuff, because I'm sure people would love to see some of the things you have. And maybe even we'll go through every hero card in a matter of 6 hours, possibly. But the last thing I have before we get into the questioning of the questions that I have here, as a Monster Jam fan, what is your message to those that are young in the sport that are either looking to grow up into it or just in general are fans and want to just hear something from someone who has had the experience that you have had?
One thing or two things I was told right before I got hired for Monster Jam from a long time Monster Jam tech official that I've known forever. He said two things to me. He said, never stop being a fan and never forget where you came from. And that is so important, especially once you're in the trenches of the monster truck industry, that I think some people do lose sight of that. And they don't really know why they all got there. And, of course, Monster Jam is such a melting pot of so many diverse people that come from all different backgrounds. From my perspective, I would work a lot with the Monster Jam hosts, and I know for sure the hosts, almost all of them, were not diehard Monster Jam fans before getting the position, but they're really good at wherever industries they came from. So I'm very familiar with the melting pot, and just know that they have to work hard to get there too. So anybody that's out there that wants to get into all the industry, and you mentioned a little earlier, everybody wants to be a driver. Like, I want to grow up and be the driver of Gravedigger. You can do it. When I was that age, I knew I just wanted to be involved. I wanted to be in the business, like actively there, not just putting on Facebook, I wipe tires down, like, and I'm a crew member. No, that's not real. Like, sustainably go out there, get a job, like an actual job that writes checks and deposits in your bank account. That was always my goal, and I was able to do that, get involved. And 20 years old, I got to work for Monster Jam. A lot of my friends or people I went to high school with still kind of live in that college party life. There I am at 20 years old, still in college. My college degree is right there, but I'm starting able to travel. So it's definitely never give up. It's very cliche. A lot of people say never give up all your dreams, but just make sure to find a way to make yourself stand out. Especially a lot of the drivers or the athletes that were recently competed with Monster Jam. Very diverse individuals too. There's no like Monster Jam University. I can transfer my credits and get your own debt from Monster Jam University. That's not how that works. You have to find your way. You will find your way to the green pastures. You just need to find a way to make yourself stand out. And also, it is important to have those backup plans. That degree up there is kind of part of my grand scheme. Granted, the time we're recording this, grand schemes are out the window. I've been sitting here for a year not doing too much on the grand scheme, but education is very important. I know some people that would kind of get involved with business and just ditch out the education, and then they're having to restart. Or even say that job like a fireman. Like, heaven forbid you're a fireman or a police officer or some sort of emergency worker, and you get hurt on the job. That could be the end of it, and you can be 20-something years old and with a blown out back, you can't be a fireman anymore, and you have to restart. Monster trucks is kind of the same vein, where if you're in too deep and it gets pulled back, and I think the pandemic really shocked a lot of people. Thank goodness I'm in a different situation where maybe my expenses aren't as extreme as somebody that has to support a family and massive bills, but just to have that backup plan is so important. And, not just say, well, I really wanted to be that Gravedigger driver, and realize you didn't get nowhere near that, and you didn't do a good enough job planning the big picture. So that's definitely advice I would give to any of the younger listeners, or anybody who wants to get involved. I mean, there's so many different ages that you can just jump into the sport and find a niche for yourself. Just obviously never stop following your dreams, but also know how you're going to get there and make yourself stand out.
That was some of the best life advice I've ever heard from anybody. I will say I've heard some great life advice. That was probably in the top 10 out of like thousands. Listen to your heart, follow your dreams. Record that, what Phil just said, staple it to your wall. That is, live by it. I have a dream to be in Monster Jam. My goal is to get there one day, and that's what I hope to do someday. And obviously I have other goals, in baseball and other things, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to have a passion, and that passion is what leads to where you did fortunately get to do for a while and hopefully get to continue. So now we're getting into the part of this show that I'm so excited for, and I know a lot of people are. So now Phil is a monster truck junkie, where you have so much knowledge that, I mean, you can throw out a random stat from a random show in 2004 and it would be spot on. And I got our good friend Cadence Case to come up with things to stump you, because Cadence is the only person that I know that can come up with this kind of material that could possibly be close to getting anywhere near stumping you. So thank you again to Cadence for sending me those. It is really appreciated. So bunch of questions here. We'll start off with the first one. Name one driver that has won Monster Jam competitions in Bounty Hunter, Scarlet Bandit, and Iron Outlaw. You could take all the time to think as you want. You might just blurt it out randomly, but this is so great.
So Monster Jam, Bounty Hunter, Iron Outlaw, and Scarlet Bandit.
Correct.
Well, that's a tough one. I think a lot of people realize that, somebody other than Don Creedon's driven that truck. And I think there's been like 17 people that officially have driven Scarlet Bandit in some sort of event.
And this is one. They had to win one.
And that's not even Monster Jam. That's just in general. And 16 of them are all men. So, I know Trent Montgomery has driven all 3 in Monster Jam. But he only did it once. It was like a Monday event up in Canada. So that's very rogue. So if I had to guess, I would guess Lindsey Wink.
I'm ready. All right. We're good. Off to a good start. Lindsey Wink is the correct answer. I know you were probably a little nervous there. Didn't want to get the first one wrong. But you got it. You got it. You nailed it. Perfect. Second question. What truck did Cody Saucier make his competition debut in? Monster Jam competition.
Iron Man. That's so easy.
See,
that was in Arnhem, Holland. Lee O'Donnell was injured, and he jumped. I think it was like 2012. He didn't get the drive till 2014, so that's kind of flew under the radar.
I didn't even know that. So these are learning experiences for me. I'm excited for this too. What position? This is some of these are. I haven't even gotten the chance to look at all of them, but some of these are really interesting. What position did Chad Fortune play on the University of Louisville football team?
He was a tight end.
3 for 3 for Phil. Wow.
Chad Fortune, man, it's the wheel of Chad Fortune. He was a wrestler too. I think a lot of people are wrestling. NFL Europe. He did NFL Europe.
All right. So if anyone has questions in the comments, Monster Jam related for Phil, I have a feeling there will be very few people in the comments that can come up with a question that'll be close to stumping you. But anyone that has a question that you think may stump Phil, don't let it just be who drove. Name every Gravedigger driver. That's too difficult. Then don't make it.
Gravedigger drivers we're still discovering from like the early 90s. So
yeah, exactly. Or don't say who won the World Finals Racing Championship in 2016. Those are easy things. Tough things. If you have a tough question that maybe you think no one knows the answer to, leave it in the comments. Until then, we'll be doing this still.
Okay.
What was special about the bullets on the side of Scott Hartsock's Gunslinger in 2010?
Well, he debuted a new scheme that year, and that was the bullet holes was his schedule. And what was so important was one of the last bullet holes said Las Vegas, and everybody was like, "Why did he put Las Vegas on there?" And then, sure enough, he got an invite to the World Finals.
Very funny. See, how about? Dude, you're on fire. 4 for 4. I expected this. I kind of thought that you would. I had a little feeling you would get it, but I thought maybe one would stump you so far. This one is, I had no idea. Who was originally slated to drive King for the 2003 season?
Oh, that's our buddy Ellis Edwards. So Ellis, he was listed in the yearbook as a driver. Ellis is a stuntman, and actually, I know you mentioned WrestleMania. Ellis is like the lead stunt coordinator for WWE. Like that's still his job, and that was his job back then too. And I don't know. I briefly talked to Ellis a number of years ago. I had some random conversation with him, and he didn't really dive in too much why he didn't get the drive. But yeah, if anybody has, you said 2003, right?
Yes.
2003 yearbook. If anyone has a 2003 yearbook, Ellis's name is in there. His picture didn't make it, but it says Ellis Edwards driver, and he never got the driving competition.
Well, you're 5 for 5, so we're doing good right now. I'm starting to think maybe Cadence didn't come up with difficult enough questions, but I couldn't answer any of these. How many times? This is a good one. How many times did Cody Saucier race Camden Murphy on Stadium Tour Yellow in 2020?
Wow.
I'll let you think, because this is a digging back.
Yeah, it seems like forever ago now. Stadium Tour was super competitive, and this was a big storyline of their tour. So I definitely remember that. You said final rounds?
No, just how many times did they race each other?
Okay, yeah. So that's 3 times.
How do you? That was too easy for you. How did you know that quickly?
I do stats, man.
I know, but man. you are really just the walking monster truck encyclopedia is sitting right next to me. It's phenomenal. According to his bio on Monster Jam's site, what is Shane England's favorite movie?
What in the world? Okay, so I don't know what his bio says, but I've been around Shane England enough where he's always saying goofy things about Mary Poppins. So I'm gonna say Mary Poppins. I don't know.
Spot on guess. What a guess. That was phenomenal. You just whipped that right out. That was great. Oh man. How many is that in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you get undefeated on this with I think there's maybe 15 more, maybe 10, 15 more.
Yeah.
I will be blown away. And I'm sure everyone else here will probably be blown away.
Well, there's a lot of people listening that watching the world chat.
We've got actually 23 viewers right now, which is the second highest I've ever had. So
well, it would have been higher if you booked this on a better time slot, but
you're right. Maybe they'll come back and watch later.
Hey, listen, a cheap plug in the middle of this. If you guys don't know what else I do, I also host 2 podcasts. One of which being Monster Truck Outlaws of the West, which is the most viewed monster truck podcast, most downloaded monster truck podcast. That's more than a certain recent Hall of Famer. We do that every Friday night on Facebook and audio only, wherever you can download podcasts. So trust me, I know how to promote podcasting.
That's true. I might have to hire Phil as a professional promoter. That I was gonna have you plug yourself later, so you got a little early on it. Yeah, you can plug it again. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. We've had a lot of people here that are so happy to see you. So many people saying hello.
Hi.
So name one venue that has hosted both stadium and arena level shows.
Well, that's really only 2 venues, and working in arena stats. It started like 2016-ish. They switched over. One being the Fargo Dome in Fargo, North Dakota, and the other being the Tacoma Dome in Tacoma, Washington. They were a long-time big name stadium, and then they brought Triple Threat into Tacoma, and then eventually into Fargo. But Fargo had a lot of regular arenas too, so it was kind of weird how they did that, especially Tacoma, because Tacoma would have like one year they had like 16 trucks, and then the next year they're like, well, here's 8. But it's triple thread. But if I'm a normal consumer, I'd be like, you just cut my truck list in half. And you bought dirt bikes instead. So, excuse me, quads, ATVs.
Yeah, and then it's the same thing when we had 20 trucks in MetLife Stadium in 2016, and then it went down to like 14. It's funny how that happens. But yeah, that was a good one. That was an easy one though. 8 in a row. How about that? Now, how many women competed at Monster Jam in Daytona in Daytona 2018?
I don't think Monster Jam's ever been to Daytona.
I don't know. Caden says it here.
Talk about Dayton.
Oh, Dayton. Wow. I added an A after that. Dayton. Wow. I even was questioning that in my head, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. But I read it that way.
That was a fall event, and there was like probably 6 trucks, and 4 of them were women, or maybe it was 8 trucks and 4 of them women, because it was Kayla Blood, Lindsay Ratu, who's driving a Master Disaster, Dawn Cretan, and probably Kristen Hope is there too. But it was definitely 4 of them. Is it Kristen Hope? Do I have my name in the drivers here?
No, you don't need a name.
Oh, so just 4. Yeah, it was 4.
Alrighty, well, that's 9 in a row.
Raising Cane, yeah.
9 in a row for you. Yeah. That's I'm just blown away with this. This is great. This is top quality TV, I will say, at its finest. I'm gonna need to have you come back and do more of these because this is great. What year was Patriot's first Hot Wheels release planned for? I think that's the key word there.
2008. I just talked about this on last week on the Monster Truck Collecting podcast.
10 for 10, man. Someone in the comments come up with a stumper because we need to stump Phil. We really do. We're gonna need to get like nitpicky, like what was the exact score of Mad Scientist's freestyle?
What's Blake Ranger's blood type?
What are the colors of Blake Ranger's children's eyes? And it's like,
his son, I think, is Brown Eyes because I've seen him around. I've never met his
and the daughter, blue. But
I don't know.
yeah, no, that would get to a little level of, you're like, oh, I contacted his doctor last week to find out. All right. How many stadium final rounds has Jim Kohler been in since 2017? There are some of these in here that are really good that I think are going to stump you, and they just don't. So
4, because his most recent one, I think, was like Jacksonville this year, wasn't it? Wasn't he in the final round this year in Stadium Series?
Yes. I don't remember if it was Jacksonville or Orlando.
All right. Well, the number's 4. And it was almost 5 if you didn't hit that K rail in the World Finals.
Yeah, you're right. How did you get that so quickly? I
know Kohler stuff.
You know all stuff. It's not just Kohler. You're a wizard with this stuff. It's phenomenal to me. Gosh, it's great. How many? I think we've got about 7 or 8 here left. I counted that very quickly. What was Blacksmith's sponsor at World Finals 4?
AutoZone. There was the regular scheme. They just put AutoZone stickers on it.
You're too good. Too good. So far undefeated for Phil right here. Killing it. We also are now at a higher view count than we have ever had on the podcast, Phil.
It would be a lot better if you aired this at a different time.
Yes, I know. This is why we'll do it again another day and have more questions and do it again sometime down the road. Now, Backwards Bob ran on a spare chassis in 2015. That was primarily what truck?
Well, it was a truck. Just a truck they had in Paxton, but it was Northern Nightmare before that. That was when Pablo Huffaker built a new chassis. He ran in Miami, and his trailer caught fire on the way to Detroit. He lost a brand new Backwards Bob chassis, and Monster Jam loaned him out one of their own chassis so he can finish out the tour.
Wow.
Only like two that happened. Yeah. Only time Ryan Huffaker drove Backwards Bob too.
Only time? Really?
That Miami show, because then the rest were just Brian Wright and then Kevin Crocker.
Man, and yet he was in the yearbook like 4 straight. This was during the time where I wasn't watching Monster Jam anymore, so I never really knew. But he was in there for like 3 years. So, because I always had the yearbooks and I always looked at them. So that's interesting.
Yeah, Ryan Huffaker would always just like do one event. At least to keep his status alive. I think that was probably the last time. That might have been the last time he drove, actually, to start really think about it.
Man, we should have one of those questions in there. That would have stumped you.
That's a little too much.
All right. Who was the last driver to win a stadium competition driving Medusa?
Wow, that's a good one. BJ Johnson, out in Australia. Dude, okay. Poor Deuce can't win in her own truck, and they have to put other people in it.
That's you're correct. as you have been. I'm just so impressed. There are 4 left. I'm gonna need to start coming up with something on my own and just like running out. Okay, this is a good one. This might be good. Andy Leszewski. In order, who did Brian Wright beat on his way to the racing championship in Detroit 2019?
I don't know. It's ridiculous. I mean, he won. He probably beat Morgan Kane along the way. That's pretty much all I can tell you. That was his first stadium win anyways. I think that was his first career racing win too, like bracket racing.
Yeah, I
after that
think so.
Too much.
I remember that actually. Was that in Denver or Santa Clara?
What?
The win.
This is right here, Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. Sorry.
You just read it out loud.
I did, and I'm reading it there, but I forgot that it said Detroit. That was fun. I actually remember commentating over that and seeing that, and that was a special moment. But so Andy, you stumped Phil, even though that was a very nitpicky question. But I mean, you've been answering some of the craziest questions. These are things that I somewhat have come to believe that you would just get easily. John Zimmer made his Monster Jam debut driving what truck?
Obsession. Gosh, and I don't know why he does not tell the story. He told me he drove Obsession in Uniondale, 2004, when they were saying that Scott Hartsock double drove Gunslinger, an obsession. He told me this story, yet like he was just on Scott Douglas's podcast, and he's like he tells everybody that his first event was at like some boondock fair driving Eradicator, in like Florida or something. But he's definitely told me otherwise. John Zimmer also tells me all the doomsday drivers, so he's a good source of information.
Okay, so good to know. Have John Zimmer on the podcast and do other things like this. 3 left, and well, you have gotten everything right so far. So I think if we were to ever have a Monster Jam Jeopardy, I think you'd probably pull a James Holtzhauer and win everything because you're very good. What was the freestyle scoring method in Paris 2002?
So that was Monster Jam's first outside of North America event. That would they ran it like a decibel meter. It's really weird. I have the program for that show in my stash of stuff over here somewhere.
Somewhere that we'll see in the future memorabilia episode. Well, you're right, and we're down to two questions. Maybe one of them will stump you. Maybe, I don't know. Probably not at this rate. Damon Bradshaw's last event came in the first show for what stadium?
U.S. Bank Stadium, Minneapolis, because I was at that show. That was when I went to train to be a competition manager. So USA One was there too. That was like hardcore. Like I remember when I walked in there and USA One is sitting there on the floor, and it was like I thought I saw the USA One trailer, and somebody like tapping shoulder, like, you know who that is, right? I'm like, that is like no way. Like
USA One.
Everett Jasmer being at Monster Jam is pretty much a silver medal to like Bob Chandler and Bigfoot being at Monster Jam. Everett Jasmer is longtime innovator, USA One, inaugural Hall of Fame class, International Monster Truck Hall of Fame. Everett Jasmer Long does not like freestyle. So that was like he kind of went in a different direction while the sport continued to be more competitive and not such heavy built trucks in like the 90s. So even just to see him at Monster Jam, and he came out, and I tell you, when he came out that Saturday night, they had an old VHS tape. They had recording of Scott Douglas. They stand up and salute USA One, and I tell you what, it was a darn near standing ovation in that building, and it was a sellout crowd to see everybody stand up for Everett Jasmer. It was in USA One. That was also Damon Bradshaw's last event. So yeah, but yeah, that's what I remember from that weekend.
That is, I remember that show when they brought USA One onto the track, and the reaction from the fans was just unbelievable. It was something unlike any other, and I remember it so vividly. It's incredible to me. Well, we've got one more here, Phil, and this is the difference between a complete sweep and getting one wrong. So this is a good one. What 3D body was supposed to debut in the early 2000s but didn't see the light until a decade later?
I just talked about this on the Toy Podcast too. It's Crustacean. So Greg Witchenbach bought. Greg had been in the business for a bit, but Greg bought a brand new Patrick chassis in the year 2000, and he wanted to build Crustacean in 2000, which is really crazy to think about. The evolution of the 3D body, like everybody was like Goldberg was maybe like the most innovative 3D body going at that time. Imagine Crustacean being around in 2000.
That would be the fan favorite.
Insane. It'd be ridiculous. Like it'd been together for another 10 years. Greg said on the chassis, he was kind of tinkering with it and finally put it together. So yeah, Crustacean, the monster lobster.
That's, well, I mean, out of all the questions that Cadence gave me, you got them all right. So in that regard, you're a winner and you win. However, there's some comments that I've got that I want to put up here. Good buddy of mine, Dave DeAngelis, asks, what was the first monster truck event advertised as Monster Jam?
Actually, I don't know if I know the answer to this. Obviously, it was 1992 because that's when they celebrate anniversaries. Would it? I honestly don't know. Would it be like Pontiac? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. He's going to need to leave the.
That could be something super rogue. I'm not sure.
I don't know. We're gonna have to find out. We'll find out when he leaves that answer in the comments. But for now, we're gonna have to move on to the next one here that I saw. What was Carl Van Horn's final show?
I think I was there. Was it not St. Louis in 2017?
Was it St. Louis?
He didn't drive again after that.
I don't know. Rolando, we're going to need you to comment the answer, obviously. Well, Dave, the answer, Pontiac 1992, October 17th, meaning that you were, even though you were questioning it, you got it right. So
I don't have the date, but I was a pretty darn good guess.
I mean, you don't need the date, but you guessed Pontiac 1992. That's about as accurate as it gets for that. Got another question here. Who was the original driver of Monster Mud?
Okay, I'm going to turn this around on you. Do you know the answer to this?
Man. Why are you turning it around on me? That's not the point. As we've established.
I want to hear you make one guess. Because I know you're going to guess wrong, but I just want to hear your guess to see even if you're anywhere close.
Okay,
well, I know
what
not
was
going to
the
be close,
year?
but I just want to. Was it 2003?
Bobby Z.
Ha, no. Okay, so
close. It was close.
That was like the third driver. Before him was Todd Frolick, but before him, the first driver and the first event was Chad Reed, Oakland Arena. No, not the Chad Reed dirt bike game. Chad Reed was the guy. I have friends with him on Facebook. He also drove Blacksmith, like in Albuquerque or somewhere. He was supposed to drive Moron. He was like a crew guy. He was a technician that was always around. He drove that one weekend, and it had some family stuff come up, so didn't get to work. Yeah, not a lot of people know that. And when I say Chad Reed, they're like, huh?
Yeah, hi. That's me. I jumped to Chad Reed, the Supercross. That's a good one. I was pretty close with Bobby Z, to be fair. Todd Frolick is a name I haven't heard in like 8 years, so that went.
Just trying to get a hold of him so we can maybe talk with him a little more down in the future.
Oh, there you go. You could have him on the podcast. That would be exciting. So MJ Productions asks, what year was the first show for Foxborough?
In Gillette? Actually, I don't know the answer to this. Is this like 2014? I don't think they did any event. They didn't do any pet POD there, or not with red and yellow colors. Was it 2014? I don't know.
I think you
have to remember something to ask this. I am from New York, just like Michael. I don't go up that way. That's where the smelly people hang out. Up in
those smelly Boston people, up in Boston.
Why got my New York Giants and New York Yankees stuff sitting up there. I've been to Fenway Park once for a ball game. Red Sox won, but that was pretty cool just to be there. I will say that.
Gillette, you have to have been to Gillette before.
Never. The one venue that I've never did an event in that I Monster Jam I really have wanted to go to is MetLife Stadium. I was 2 months old at my first New York Giants game. My parents put me in a backpack and walked me into the stadium. We have season tickets there. Obviously, a lot of family still lives in that area. That MetLife to me is like a World Finals. I was actually supposed to do that event in 2019. There was some travel mistakes made on employer's fault, so I didn't get to go. But that's one I would trade anybody in a heartbeat to do that event just once, just to be there. That'd be a big deal for me. Like I've done World Finals, I've traveled country. That'd be a big deal for me for MetLife.
That's great. That's something special. I love that. See, now me, I've been to how many MetLife Stadium shows? Oh man, like
I never wanted to go. People are like, why don't you just fly out? Like back when they were really trying to make that like the event right under the World Finals, where they had like display trucks and everything, and like FDNY. I have an FDNY T-shirt of the truck, really? But it was like, oh, why don't you just come? And I'm like, Like, I just at the World Finals, man, and that's like a
Yeah,
4-hour
it's
drive,
tough.
not a 4-hour flight. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
See, the thing is, you've been living in Arizona the whole time, where it doesn't.
Here's the
You
difference. I am not from Arizona. I
right,
reside here.
right, exactly. So you moved before MetLife became a thing. So it
Well, I
doesn't.
wasn't even a Monster Jam fan when I lived in New York. So that's something I really took off here. So actually, I have pictures. My parents saw monster trucks in like 1990 or late 80s in Madison Square Garden. Bigfoot, Miss Bigfoot, Virginia Giant, truck and tractor pulls. And it was funny. My dad was telling the story to Bill Easterly, who is one of the longtime senior officials at Monster Jam, was literally there since the beginning of time. He was telling the story. My dad was telling the story to him, and Bill started laughing, saying, I was probably a tech official at that event. That's how long Bill has been in the business, where my dad's in the crowd, and Bill remembers that event, being there on the floor. Now Bill has worn a lot of different hats, and he's very much a senior executive with Monster Jam. But it's just that's really cool, too. Let's tie that back in, like really work hard. No, I'm not Bill Easterly, and I don't speak for him, but his story is very, very incredible and humbling, how much that he's been in. There's a lot of people like that in monster trucks that have been around this for such a long time and have done just so many different things. And hopefully I'll be that one day. No, I've done a lot, but I'm very blessed to be around a lot of interesting people.
You're also very fortunate that you're very young for someone getting into this, and already you've had your foot in the door since you were 12. Most of these people were, 40 years old when they got started, 30, 40. So,
and that's why I joke. I tell people, like, I feel like an old man, and I especially say that to a lot of the Monster Jam hosts they're all older than me. So they're like, "What? Or like what? Like I just
you're telling me what to do?"
How old? Like, but that's just also the way I've carried myself, and especially learning a lot about this sport. It's like a lot of times, especially like I have to live at a different time frame.
Yeah, that's very true, especially now. So Dave left another great question, and obviously Dave will rely on you to leave the answer in the comments unless you know the answer. What was the first monster truck to crush cars?
Well, I can tell you who wasn't the first truck. It was not Bigfoot. So
or Gravedigger, probably.
A big misconception. Bigfoot is always considered the first monster truck. If you really look at timelines, no, probably not. They just coined the term. The first one mainstream it, and the copyright will make a brand out of it. So I know that's a very controversial take. I don't know who the first one to crush cars. That one could also be up to debate. Kind of like the first rollover has always been one, or even like in more modern times, like the backflip. Who was the first to backflip? And I will fight every day of the week to say the first person to backflip was Mike Welch.
When and where?
Like 10, 15 years before Tom Mentz and Larry Quick made it cool. So I don't know how people know that. If you want to hear about that story, we interviewed Hall of Famer Mike Welch on the Monster Truck Outlaws of the West podcast. He tells the whole story before many of you were even born, how he thought to backflip a monster truck, even before Goldberg existed. Like he was Mike Welch. A lot of the stuff we do in Monster Jam today, and even monster trucks in general, Mike Welch did it first. So like log rides and Apex, rollover trucks, little weird, even concept bodies. Mike Welch did it first. That's a fascinating man. If you ever get to talk to Mike Welch,
I have to watch that show from you.
Yeah, that's the problem. Too many people that live in like the Monster Jam bubble are like, Monster Jam was in Columbia, South Carolina this weekend.
Yeah,
there was like 8 other monster truck shows going on.
Were there really?
All over the country. There was one in Australia this weekend. Like, stay with the times, folks. Like, there's a lot that goes on in the business outside of Monster Jam. And no offense, I'm saying that's also where I learn a lot with my job and just being a fan in general. Like, I actively follow every event every weekend. So I don't necessarily watch everything, but at least I have a good understanding of what's happening. And that's really important to. Especially when I see people like, I'm on a tangent now, but like people, I see a lot on Facebook. Like I see like a picture of Predator that comes up, and they're like, "Man, Alan Pizzo, he's back." It's like,
and you're like, he never left.
Pizzo runs every weekend. You just sorry he doesn't have social media, and you're just not realizing there's other people than Monster Jam out there. It's like this David Olford. Wow, this David Olford's a really good driver in Jurassic Attack. Yeah, funny. David, he's been driving for a little bit, okay? Like, not brand new. He first drove for Creighton like 6-7 years ago. So, yeah.
And that's the I've learned so much from you in it's almost been 2 years now. I've been living here for almost 2 years, which blows my mind. But I've learned so much from you in a short span of time. I thought I knew a lot about Monster Jam. And then I met you, I met Cadence, and I'm like, wow, I don't know anything. I'm one of those people like Monster Jam fans who are like, I feel like I know a lot. And then you look and you're like, man, I
never stop learning. That's the thing. I learn something new every day about the sport. And even like sitting on here, just every little thing helps, and it builds the knowledge. Plus, I've had a lot of lonely summers when I was in school, so I had a lot of time to study a lot of things.
Lots of time. So Dave did give the answer. He said it was King Kong. So I think that's
right. I mean, Dave, ask Jeff Dane. Jeff Dane probably says it's right, but I'm sure there's like some yokel that claims he did it first. That's a problem with a lot of these firsts back in the day. There's no internet. Yeah. And people like there's collective. I think this was first, but even like the Bigfoot thing is like, was he though? Like,
because there was probably some dude who made a car, put big tires on it in Austria, who drove over his own car and just drove away.
And if you listen to like your local news station, any like lifted truck is a monster truck. So I mean, where do we go?
Well, yeah. That's actually really true. That's a really great point. Now, there's this question here. This will be one of the last two that I put up. I want to get a ballpark because obviously unless you write it down somewhere, which is possible.
Well, I do. So the question on the screen is, how many shows have you been to in your life? Well, that's my buddy Brian Anger. If anybody listens to the Outlaws, that's the guy I ask a question about every week. I actually do have a running list. I got this idea from probably one of my closest friend in monster trucks, my best friend Preston Perez, who I've known since we were kids. I mean, from 12 years old on the message board. Preston drives Higher Education, Rottweiler, and Triple Threat Series. He had a list like this, and it inspired me to go back and write them all down. And I have the comprehensive stats that make a lot of people really think a little bit. So I've had 124 total collective weekends of monster trucks. That is 306 total shows. But I am counting World Finals and the All-Star Challenge as one big show. I will just say that for those people, so you're splitting them up.
Which it is.
Yeah, that's 24 states, 2 countries, 1 district, 1 territory. I've seen 215 total drivers compete in a monster truck, 176 different names of monster trucks in the competition. That is 18 different monster truck promoters at 64 different venues. So
how many? So what's the total like show count? Like weekends, there's 2 shows, 3 shows in a weekend.
So that's my number is 306. And yeah, you do have to remember that the last 2 years, 2019, 2020, I worked on the Triple Threat Series. So you get a weekend like Rosemont that gets 5 or 6 shows, events. That adds your total. I did Del Mar, California for I think 4 or 5 years, and that weekend it's grown now, but that's good gosh, that's 8 events in a 4-day span. So that adds up there too. So things like that too, but also like there's multiple places. Like I did just in 2020, I did Charlotte Triple Threat Central on Friday night, and then I went back to my tour Triple Threat East in Greensboro Saturday and Sunday. So like multiple same weekend. And here in Arizona, like there was one weekend where Bill Payne's promotion was out in Apache Junction, and then there was also monster trucks at the Maricopa County Fair same weekend. So it's like driving back and forth that weekend between the events to try to get
and then there was
possible.
The Arizona State Fair that I went to, where there were 5 shows in a matter of 3 days, and actually I think there were like 6. I mean, it was crazy.
And because I'm disturbing, I go to all of them. I don't leave all weekend, so but then again, I'm Phil. So
You're Phil. Everyone knows you. It's not like you're some random dude.
I'm very blessed to be friends with a lot of the teams and the promoters themselves, where I get to be at these events, kind of under the radar. When I say that, where not it's just good to know people, and but also lend a helping hand. It's not like I'm just there to mooch off people and get a free ticket. It's there to also just to be there and support. Like I'm not mechanically inclined, but like I wouldn't be afraid to hold a flashlight or move a tire or run a kill. There's so many different hats that you wear at these events. So I'm not in the way. Let's put it that way.
I would make the assumption and statement that you were probably the most popular person in Monster Jam that not many fans know. Like that ratio, because almost everyone that are drivers and in the company and in the sport know who you are, but fans don't. Which is why I also think this is good to do, because not many people probably know who you are, and I didn't know who you were till I moved out here.
Well, and I'm honored. I've never made that about myself. Like, again, I will chat your ear off on a platform like this, or people talk to me in person. I get a lot of strange Instagram messages too, but I've never made it about myself. I'm just a guy. I'm there to make the machine run. That's part of how you make an event work. It's not about. There's a lot of unsung heroes, and it always makes you chuckle when I see people complain about certain things, or maybe just question why things happen a certain way. And unfortunately, they're not looking at it, which is okay, because that's kind of part of the magic of being at a sporting event or an entertainment event, where you're there to enjoy yourself. And so, as long as you're having fun, the mission is accomplished. And one thing I found Monster Trucks, and I think everybody can agree with, they're incredibly loyal, and it's a very dedicated fan base where you can have personal relationships with these people. Even before I worked for Monster Jam, I knew a lot of almost everybody there personally, and they're all friendships. You can't get close to my dad has made that point too. When you're at these pit parties, you can't get close to a football player, a NASCAR driver, a boxer, soccer player. But the Monster Jam drivers, any Monster Truck driver at any event, you can get close to them, and they'll sign whatever you want. They'll hear whatever story you have to tell, and they might follow you back on Instagram. That could never happen anywhere else, and that's what makes Monster Trucks so special.
Yeah, and that is what separates Monster Jam from everything else, is the uniqueness of it and the overall special feeling of it, you can actually talk to the stars and get to know them, and that's why it's so special. Now I'm only at 49 shows as a fan, which is a very big number compared to a lot of typical fans. Most typical fans are in like the 30-40 range. I've gotten up to that 49. I'm waiting for that 50 show. I'm hoping it'll be a Glendale show, because that would be special. If not, I would be happy with anything, but it'll actually probably be the Arizona State Fair. I'm eyeballing some summer shows.
Well, the State Fair's not at the fairgrounds this year. I hope you saw that.
I know. It's right next to my house. It's like 15 minutes away from me.
I doubt they're doing Monster Trucks, just to be honest with you. But that's a good question for Brian Wagner at All-Star Monster Truck Tour, who's been doing a great job this first quarter with events. And that's a lot where John Zimmer Jr.'s cutting his teeth right now with the All-Star Monster Truck Tour. So shout out to Wagons.
Wagons. So the last question I have here before we head out today is from Duncan Tave. It says, what stadium event did Steve Sims and Stone Crusher get fastest qualifier and win racing at?
I don't think Steve Sims has ever won a racing stadium event. That doesn't make. I don't know the answer to that. That sounds Greek to me. I don't recall Steve Sims ever winning a stadium racing event. So that has to be something early on that I maybe have just totally forgot about. So,
well, Duncan, you're going to have to leave it in the comments, because that's
I am watching the comments. I've seen some people come in with certain questions like final events and things like that. It's funny. I saw someone mention Bernie Sanders' final event. That was my first day on the job.
Was it really?
That was my tour. Yeah,
that was tough.
That was a wild weekend. And then George Bellhand's final event, I was also there for that. That was Anaheim, that same tour, Joe Bounty Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Miami 2009, Duncan says. Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that's how long ago. If you ask certain statisticians, they would say after a certain year, we can't talk about it, which is ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I watch ESPN, the sports channels all the time. How many times they go back to a crazy statistic? Another thing I always didn't like. They're like, after a certain year, blah, 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 blah. It's like,
yeah, like when they said Gunslinger,
here.
MetLife Stadium 2019, Gunslingers in the final round. This is Gunslinger's first ever final round appearance. Okay, sure.
That's an example, and that's why it's not done like that anymore because of that. Heaven forbid if Scott Hartsock won that night in Slinger, they would have went out there and said, "This is your first win."
Yeah, that would have been.
Someone would have been
blasphemy. Oh my God!
Someone would have been fired, and unfortunately, the gentleman who had a hand in that is in the comments, so I will not rag him any further. But see, there are other people that heard that. It's not just I got text messages from people that night.
That was very evident.
Let me ask David Bradshaw's final event. Did this guy not watch the show?
He's been here since the beginning. I don't know. This is
my favorite color is green. If anybody wanted to know, but I
wanted to know that. But
I like wearing blue more. So,
well, you're wearing the high vis at the moment.
Well, actually, I'm wearing this shirt. I have not worn this shirt since that night in 2016. I was part of the judging team at the World Finals.
Yes, this is the first time you've worn that since.
Yes.
So what you're telling me is I got to see you wearing that the last time and this time that you wore it, the first and last time that you ever wore this shirt. Well, even though I didn't physically see you, I was just in attendance there judging your judging.
Well, to be fair, I was on the team. I say that because you never saw any of my scores. I was one of the backup judges, so I was part of everything that week. So all about the loophole. And I still stand by Adam Anderson was the winner that night. I can't agree with that. That's okay. That's a different day, different story for a different day. Phil, thank you so much. This was great. I had so much fun. I know that the viewers had a lot of fun. You're definitely welcome back anytime. I'm sure the viewers would love to have you back. This has been by far the steadiest viewership we have had on a podcast so far. That just goes to show you the fans love Phil. Everyone loves Phil. If you didn't book it on a Sunday Super Bowl of wrestling, so
you're gonna just dig it in there as much as you can, but that's okay. We'll get you back and maybe get up to 40 viewers, and then we'll.
Oh, I know I will. Don't worry. So,
Phil's gonna hype us up, which is good. I'm happy about that. So, Phil, plug yourself. Where can we hear you, see you, look at you, anything?
You can look at me. Yeah, you can look at me at any time on my Facebook or my Instagram. I have pictures there. You can send me a friend request. If I don't answer it, I'm like old and slow. I am an old man.
Old and slow.
Like if I ignored your friend request, just send me like a message or something. I'm a little slow. Instagram, yeah, I'm on there too. My name is Phil Vicinanza. I'm not hard to find. I know it's hard to spell, but there ain't too many Phils in this sport. Phil Norman's out there. I know Phil Foster is somewhere. Filionos, that's pretty much all the Phils I know. So, that's my platforms there. I'm currently hosting podcasts. So if you check out the Monster Truck Outlaws of the West every Friday night on Facebook, we interview the past, present, and the future of the monster trucks on the West Coast scene, from rising stars to monster truck Hall of Famers. We just had Russell Steele on last Friday, who is Jimmy Carreton's longtime hired gun. And that was there. He got to, mentor a lot of guys like Nick Owens and Austin Mitten. So he was our guest last Friday. We're trying to work on a guest here for this Friday, so stay tuned to our Facebook page. Teasers on that. Spoke to some people. Trying to finalize everything, but we have a lot of great guests there. A lot of Monster Jams past stars, like Nathan Wink was just on a couple weeks ago. Charles Benz, the Swansons, David Smith. They're all in our archive, so check that out there. And also, I host a Monster Truck Collecting podcast Monday nights on Monster Jam OCD's YouTube channel. We just talk about toys. I'm sure a lot of people catch me on there too. Any of those podcasts are available audio only: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. I just found out radio.com is not radio.com anymore. I think it's called Audacity. So we're there now too. Anybody can download sound. And of course, I'm also the admin of the Monster Truck Collecting Facebook group. It is the spiritual successor of the Monster Truck Collectors Forum, which was created in 2003. So it is almost a 20-year brand, still going strong with some tweaks. It's the most active monster truck group on Facebook. We talk about toys, but also the real-life monsters. It's the one-stop shop. So if you have a Facebook account, if you don't make it, you should make a Facebook account. I've had a lot of Instagram kids just make a Facebook account just to be on the Facebook group, which is super wise. Like, Facebook's the old man platform. Well, they're missing out when they're not on that group. So if you want to make a Facebook account, join the group. find me there. And if you guys have any questions for me, maybe my DMs are always open and stuff. I mean, I might not answer right away, or I might answer one-answer responses, but I always hear you, see everybody, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm a nobody. I'm just a goon that knows things. So I'm appreciative. I've never made it about myself. So appreciate anybody that ever has a chance to listen to me, and hopefully cross paths sooner rather than later. I know time of recording this, it's still kind of goofy out there, but now show must go on, and hopefully I get to be part of it.
Well, Phil, I know that me personally, I can't wait to get to see you again in person at a Monster Jam show or in general, and I know that a lot of others here would love to do the same. Thank you for coming on. It was a great time. Episode 3 was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, I hope, and I know that the viewers enjoyed it. So thank you guys for tuning in right at the hour mark. Who's ready for Monster Jam Podcast Episode 3? We will see you all next time.